Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a special episode here on the channel that kind of has been in the works for a couple of weeks now. And I want to welcome Phil Aston from Now Spinning Magazine with Phil Aston to Sea of Tranquility. What's up, Phil? By the way, great job on the Review Crew episode recently. That was such a fun episode all around. And
Loved it. Absolutely love that, Pete.
leading off
Whenever I'm,
with Seven Star, I thought was great.
yeah, great. No, it's a great show and it's a great panel of people. It's a great idea as well. So, yeah, I think I'm on another one just before Christmas with you guys. So, thank you.
Nice, awesome. Looking forward to seeing that. So, a couple of weeks ago, Phil posted a video on his channel called Why I Won't Be Bullied by a Piece of Computer Code. And I really enjoyed the video. It's almost like Phil was reading my mind because I have been, and I won't say worried, but I've been a little frustrated in recent months. Maybe it's not recent months, maybe it's the last year, by this influx on YouTube of YouTube creators posting videos about negative topics. Albums I hate, why I hate this, things I hate the most overrated this, overrated that. It's a, that sort of thing. And we're all fairly guilty of doing it from time to time. Now, I've come on the air here on SOT many times and spoken about how I generally don't like to do content like that. I'm a pretty positive guy. I do this because I love the music and I'm a big fan and I'm passionate about this and about stuff that I like and that I love and that I follow. Now, it's not to say that every so often, as kind of like a palate cleanser, to do a fun show meant more as comedy to talk about the stuff you don't like, just to kind of get laughs and, but it's all kind of meant to be fun and tongue in cheek. But I see other YouTube channels that's all they do and people flock to that stuff, which, here in the States, Phil, I guess it's not surprising because people love reality TV and shock TV and things like that, which generally speaking, it's like watching train wrecks, right? So I kind of get
Yeah.
why people are attracted to that. But then again, I'm really not. So when I saw Phil's video, which has done very well, I might add, like really,
Yeah.
really well.
Which is
And
a paradox in itself.
yeah, exactly. And so I did an experiment, and my video seems to be buffering a little bit, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. But I did an experiment like a month ago where I did two videos side by side, and it was kind of like a play on what Scott Lade and Andy Edwards were doing, right? I figured, let me just do something on SOT and see how it kind of works out. And I did a show on the 10 things I love the most in life, so to speak, right? It was non-music related. And then 10 things I despise. And I purposely didn't want to use the term hate because despise, things I don't really like, right? Again, more meant to be funny, whereas the things I love was meant to be, hey, this is stuff that really is important to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to see, like, all right, what will the viewership be for each one of these? And I knew going in, I'm like, I think the negative one is going to do a little bit better. Did twice the amount of views. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, why are more people interested in hearing me bitch about stuff that I don't like than about stuff that's really, really important to me that I just maybe don't talk about at all because I'm always talking about music and stuff, because I specifically wanted to talk about stuff that's non-related to anything I would talk about on the channel as a way to reveal things about me that people maybe didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
before. And I was amazed at how the views for the negative one were double. Granted, the negative one was fun to do. I tried to make it humorous and funny, and it was. And I get it, people like to laugh, but I mean, people are like, this is the best video you ever did. I've waited 2 years for this and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, why? So I immediately, after I did that and I watched Phil's video, I reached out to Phil and I'm like, I really would like to do a video together to kind of dive a little deeper into this and to kind of pose some questions to the viewership. It's like, why is that type of video more appealing than someone talking about some stuff that they really love and they're more passionate about. So Phil, I don't know if you want to maybe expand on that a little bit and go back to the responses that you got on your video, and has that opened your eyes at all into your stance on this, which, you're even, I think, a little more stricter than me. You really don't like doing these at all, not for any reason at all. And I love
No.
the way you explain how it's almost like a rite of passage that you kind of have to do it to gain views and gain subscribers, but yet it goes against everything that we're all about, right?
I think that one of the things I think that all of us do, and this was my video was aimed at, as it was called, I won't be bullied by a piece of computer code, because my rant was aimed at the algorithm.
Right.
It wasn't aimed at any creator, because I think that all of us, whoever we are, love music. That in this space that they do music videos, we love music. It was kind of watching younger or newer channels starting to, embark on this journey. You're thinking, well, oh, so this is what you need to do. And I think that my feeling is, and you're right, that it's a path that I haven't kind of gone down, is that I want to be true to myself so that I can just feel the freedom of doing what I want to do, because I know that the way the algorithm works, and we see those little messages that YouTube tells us behind the scenes, this video is doing better than the one you did before, almost saying you should do more of these, Phil. And if you do a video that doesn't, it says this is not as popular with your audience as the other videos. And it's almost saying like, don't do these, Phil,
Don't do this. Yeah.
because we're not going to show this to anyone.
Right.
But I think that obviously a lot of these online software apps, I can't remember it again, still can't remember what it's called, VDIQ or something. The one that gives you ideas for titles and descriptions and stuff like that. It will suggest, you're thinking, well, I'm just going to review this. I've just talked. We're going to talk about talking to musicians later on, but I spoke to Steve Hackett, and its response was the shocking truth about Steve Hackett. And I thought, well, there's no shocking truth. I just talked to him about Lamb Lies Down. It's no, it's about an album. But obviously that's not enough. And it gave me a score of 20 out of 100. Whereas the shocking truth was like 98 out of 100, because this will get the people in. Because they'll be, wonder what Phil's going to say. But what I found from doing that video, because you can tell, those of you who watched it, I say at the very beginning, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this video up. I felt almost uncomfortable, but I'd felt that watching so many when I go onto YouTube, all these suggested videos are all full of, you know, another 50 albums I hate, and this time it's personal or something. That I thought, well, I'll put it out, and I'm going to expect some kind of backlash from somewhere. But there was nearly 600 comments, and many people have commented on the comments by saying all of them were supportive. So it did make me think that maybe, depending on how you venture out into the world of YouTube as a creator, all of us were forming communities under that banner. And that community is created based on our own personalities in a way. The way we are, the way we kind of act and react. And if, we draw in those kind of people. Maybe the kind of people who'd think, well, yeah, I'd sit down in the pub with Phil and have a chat over a couple of beers about music. Or some people might think, now he'd be boring or something, and I'd go to another pub. But so you kind of maybe we start to attract the people we want to talk to. And I think if you go down this track 100%, I mean, all of us, as you say, it's quite natural to dabble with it. Even if I'm reviewing something that I like, but it's been put together by a record company and a bit slapdash, and I think they're ripping people off, I will say, the record company could have done a better job on this package. It's a bit pants. So I think that's completely natural to do that. But if you go down the route where you're constantly hammering why you don't like something, I think you're going to attract a different type of, you're going to build a different kind of community. And you could easily, I had a message from a YouTuber this morning saying, Phil, I've just had a video that's gone viral, and I don't know what to do next. I think we can all get caught up with thinking we've got to chase the numbers and the algorithm. But I think my feeling is, and I feel more, not so overly strongly about this, but I feel like it's got to be fun, and it's got to be almost effortless to create what we do here. You've got to you've got to sit in front of the camera and think, I'm really feeling good about talking about this. And I don't know whether I could do that if I was saying so many things that I don't like. I could just keep going week after week doing that.
And it would get old pretty quick, I would think.
Yeah. I know you'd run out of stuff because why would you? Because why have you got it? Why, why have you got all this collection of stuff that actually you don't like? Sell
Right.
it, give it to someone who might like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny because like I go and I I look, and we all do it. We look back on like you can see like the most popular viewers across the history of the channel, and you go and you look at the stuff that you're very very proud of, and then all of a sudden there you see, okay, well there was that one negative video I did in March of 2022, and that's got 300,000 views, and you're like, right, and then you go and you go through a couple of the popular ones, and there's another one. So. I mean, people just are drawn to that sort of thing. And I think a couple of years ago, like I'll just specifically talk Sea Tranquility here, we did those occasionally more as a way to just kind of like get off a little steam, like I mentioned before, a palate cleanser, just to have fun and take the piss out, as you guys would like to say, right? It's more of like this
Bit
is
of
just for
banter.
fun. Don't take
Yeah.
it too seriously. But to your point, I think a lot of younger channels think that this is what they're expected to do because it's the only way to gain an audience. And I've seen plenty of young YouTube channels that's what they do, and their numbers skyrocket right out of the gate. And I'm thinking, well, what was I doing wrong? It took me like 4 years to gain any traction here on YouTube, right? And people in their first year are doing, already they have, 50,000 subscribers and they've got millions of views because they're just pumping out the negativity over and over again, and people are latching onto that. So there is something that draws viewers into that type of content. But you have to wonder, is that sustainable? That's what I always question. It's like, it's one thing if you're going to do occasional negative type, I hate this, worse this all the time. But after a while, is that really going to keep and sustain a community like we have built with our own channels? I don't think so. I really don't think so because I've already seen some people comment in recent weeks. It's like one of the things I love coming back to Sea Tranquility. It's just always such a breath of fresh air and positivity. I'm getting tired of all the negative stuff that I see everywhere else. So it leads me to believe that there is hope that people eventually realize that while that may be fun for fleeting moments here and there, long term, you can't sustain it.
Well, I said that, that video had 600, nearly 600 comments and they were all positive. If that video had attracted where people comments where people didn't agree, and it had been 1,200 comments of people saying, you're talking rubbish, I agree, it's rubbish, I agree, it would have been shown by the algorithm to thousands of more people. It would have just appeared on their homepage as watch this. And I think it's the algorithm that sees what we would see as creators as a fight breaking out and looking at your comment stream thinking, oh, I've got to go and sort this out now. I've got to start blocking and things. The algorithm sees this as this is good. This video really is taking off because the algorithm can't see any humanity behind it. It's just
No, not at
it's
all.
just it's just code, and this is people are obviously bouncing off each other here. It doesn't care whether they're saying I really like what you're doing or this is a great album. I agree. People could be swearing and everything else, but it just sees this as this is the one to push.
Yeah.
And I think that as a creator, some creators can actually feel that no, this is the way forward. My approach and yours is probably just the same. When we first ever started doing this, and I know Pete, you've been doing this for years and years and years, is that I just wanted to connect with people that like music, whether it was the kind of music I grew up with or the music I'm discovering now. And so it's the kind of people I'd sit down with, and as I said, and have a beer with. And I can do that with friends forever while I'm on the planet. So that's the community that I envisage in my mind. It's not trying to scoop up, tens of thousands of complete strangers who absolutely react in a hateful way to what I'm creating. That to me is not where I want to be taking now Spinning Magazine and like you with Sea of Tranquility. I want to be a bit of light in the darkness. If I turn the news on, doesn't matter what country in the world you are, the news is dark.
It's
And I
horrible.
just think it's I don't want to be part of anything that pulls pulls down how people feel. I mean, there's enough issues in the world, and the same with
This
music.
has to be the anti that in my.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you approach it that way, then the majority of your community that you build think, I'm going to Sea of Tranquility. It's a good place to hang out. It'll cheer me up. I've had a bad day or whatever, or, I'm going to go there. It'll be a bit of fun and, that might inspire me to listen to something I haven't played for years. That's the ethos behind what I do. And I want to be able to do this without it being overly complicated. So the algorithm might be telling me you're going to have to do that did well last week, Phil, but next week you're going to have to do better than that. This is why I said in my video, imagine having the worst boss in the world, a boss that every week you work your butt off trying to do something that's really good, and he calls you on a Friday and he goes, "That was good, but next week I want you to double that." And so we need to do more of that. And the next week we're going to have to do more. That's the algorithm. And I want to be able to have the freedom to, some videos will do really well. And some videos may not do as well as those, but it's okay because it all fits in the bigger picture. Everything that I create is part of the ethos behind a positive look and an appreciation and a celebration of some of the greatest music that's ever been created.
Yeah, and I have certain shows that we do on SOT that don't really draw a lot of viewers. I'll use an example, a show that I personally love doing, and the people who watch it love it. For Fusion Friday. So it's a once a month show. It's all about fusion music, which is a very niche
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
it is,
style
isn't
of
it?
music,
Yeah,
right? It really is. Instrumental,
yeah,
virtuoso type stuff,
yeah,
jazz
yeah.
rock fusion,
Great
right?
stuff. Yeah.
But it's like we have a tight crew who works on the show. The format is very, very consistent. And even though month after month after month after month, the views are about the same, the people that watch the show love it. They come back every month. You go and you look at the comments of all these videos, high amount of comments because the people who are watching it are involved in it, they're invested in it. And you know what? That means more to me than any other show that we do that, maybe one week it gets 8,000 views, the next week it gets 20,000 views, the next week it gets 3,000 views because people are just like, well, if the topic is okay, I'll watch it. If it's not, I won't watch it. I'm not really invested that much in it, but I like some of the people that are on the show. But so it's like I would rather have that dedicated audience who's passionate about what we're talking about, even if it means that the masses aren't watching it, but we're making those 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 people happy month after month after month, and they can expect that quality that they want to see, and hopefully music that they want to learn about. And it's that whole experience, that whole community experience, and you can tell it's rewarding for the viewers. That means a lot more to me than doing a 5 minute clickbaity, hate spewing little video that is going to go viral, right? But are those people ever going to come back?
Yeah, and it's not really you either. It's not,
It's
I
not
don't
really
think
me. Exactly,
it's not
100%. Yeah.
it's not sustainable. I think we are we're not I'm not Sky TV, you're not NBC or whatever. We are, and we're not a big record company where we decide, well, that little band up the corner, we're going to drop them now because no one's buying their stuff. What we have the freedom to do here is is curate and put together something that encompasses all the kind of things that we love. So the fact that you have this small program that looks after people that love jazz, fusion, jazz rock is great because it doesn't matter if it was it I can't remember. It's like when I started, I used to say to myself, one more than zero, Phil. If you get one person turns up, it's like going to this imaginary pub and one person's come to talk about Bloodwind Pig and it's fine, because that person can't believe that someone's talking about Bloodwind Pig. So the fact this exists and a group of people from around the world tune in to watch it, that's a really good thing to do because over time, those people who love jazz fusion, I've got somewhere to think, oh, once a month I can go to Sea of Tranquility. We can talk about this music that it's no one else in my group of friends likes or something, or even knows who these bands are. I think that is what, I do some shows where they don't get that much traction. And at times, I'll be honest, I've thought, I'm going to stop doing that. And then I'll get messages saying, Phil, why have you stopped doing that? I really liked it.
Because it
And
means
yeah, and
something.
it's a juggle. Have I got time to commit to creating something if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't get the audience? But once a month, yeah, I can slot that in. And it's those people who come to that show are they're part of that community. And I think community is like providing things for different tastes. So there'll be some people that love the new Opeth album, the death metal. There'll be some people that like, Nick Drake. But and there'll be some people. It's like a music magazine. I kind of put myself next to like Sounds newspaper in the UK. That's how I kind of saw Now Spinning magazine. So you turn the page, and it's the folk page. I'm not interested in folk. The next page is rock. So I don't expect everyone to watch every video, but they're all part of a community where they can come and feel safe and know that there's going to be no snide remarks. If someone says, "Oh, no one's going to say that's a really shit album or that you shouldn't," because everyone knows they're part of something where that doesn't happen. And I think all of us as creators, especially those of us like yourself who've been around for a long time, we all, in a way, you can't copy each other because each audience is built uniquely around the person who set it up. Like you done Sea of Tranquility and me doing Now Spinning magazine.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation and situation to be in. And I think it's always evolving. So, and it's we as creators are still learning. I mean, I've been
Yeah,
doing this on here for 10 years now, but I'm still learning. I still have to tweak. And, now it's in fact, we just did it yesterday. It's like, you meet with some of the people who help you put all this stuff together. It's like, okay, well, another year is pretty much in the books. How are we going to do things differently next year? Because all this happened during the course of the year. These are the trends we saw. How do we react to that? How do we make what we do even better, right? Because the viewers expect that. I'm sure the viewers don't want static,
yeah,
bland,
yeah,
the same old year after year after year. That's why every year I change things up a little bit, maybe slightly. Maybe it's not always apparent on the surface, but you have to do that. Anybody who's programming content on whatever medium, we all watch ratings and views and we see reactions and comments and things like that. And you have to kind of alter what you do at all times. Um, and every year things change a little bit and you hope for the better because that's why we're doing it. We're trying to change things for the better for you, the viewers, to make the channel more exciting and make you want to come here often. And I fully understand. Like we pump out a lot of content. And I know here on SOT, it's just, every week there's tons of stuff to watch. And I know now we're post-COVID and people maybe have less time to watch content. I get it. There's a lot of other channels out there that people
yeah,
watch. So you're vying for like, please give us a little bit of time. Here are 10 videos we published this week. Hopefully you can spend time with two or three of them and it's worthwhile and will make you want to come back. So yeah, it's always a challenge. And we're just going to keep watching and listening and seeing what works and what doesn't. But I think, the main point is that, that we wanted to come across today is that, Phil and we publish, we preach positivity and passion about what we talk about. So while, especially for me, I may occasionally dabble a little bit in that other stuff. Just know that that's not what I like to do on a regular basis. And if you guys have fun with it when I do it, that's great. But I always refuse to do that just to do it because the damn algorithm tells me I should do it because it's not sustainable and that's not what I'm all about. And I know that is exactly what I got out of your video. It's like, we have to publish and create what's true to what we feel in here and in here. So, with that being said, I want to kind of pivot the second part of this conversation a little bit. Something that I have been seeing for a couple of years now, and it honestly it frustrates me to no end. It puzzles me to no end. And I again was on Phil's channel, and I noticed that Phil did an interview with a really big dude, a big guy who I was like, great on Phil for getting that dude to come talk to him on his channel, Devin Townsend. And like, why has nobody watched it? And I'm thinking, this just supports everything I've been complaining about for the last couple of years. Why is it that I'm going to use it as an example because it's the most recent one. Why is it that I can review John Anderson's brand new album and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have watched my review of that album? Thank you. I'm happy you've come to watch me talk about it because I think it's a great album. I'm glad you're excited about it. Great album for John. No issues with that. But why then, like 2 weeks later, I have the man himself on SOT talking about the album and the creation of the album, and not even half the amount of people will bother to watch that, as opposed to me talking about the album when it came out. I don't understand it. I have been for years interviewing big name rock stars and even some not so big names on this channel, and I very rarely say no when publicists and record labels come to me and ask me, "Can you interview such and such?" And I'm like, "Okay." But I am just befuddled why views of interviews with these very important people that we all know and love, we love their music, that nobody wants to watch and listen to them talk about what the experience was creating these albums that we love so much. I feel like I want to know from the viewers why, because I don't understand why. I keep thinking, should I even bother doing these anymore? Because so few people watch them. It's beyond frustrating to me. You know, when I had a couple of years ago, I had D. Snyder of all people on SOT. D. Snyder. I was shocked at how few people were interested in watching D. Snyder talk on SOT for 30 minutes. Absolutely shocked. Your take on this?
Uh, exactly the same. Obviously, I'm still fairly new to this, and so when I this year, 2024, I've interviewed some of my childhood heroes. You know, Steve Howe, Steve Hackett. I'm probably talking to Steve Hackett for the fourth time in January, and so you know, there's been tons. If you look on my website, as you say, Devin Townsend, loads of really big names, one after the other. And each time when I first started, I thought, this is it. This 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 interview is going to go viral. I was so excited. I told everyone in the Facebook group, "Look who I'm interviewing," and people go, "Oh, this is brilliant, Phil. You know, well done." And then hardly anyone watched it. And as you say, I'd reviewed the album, you know, and but it was half as many. And I felt almost embarrassed to almost go back to the publicist or the record label and say, "Well, this is how it's gone. These are the links to for you to for the you know the artist to come and watch it." And I thought, is it me? Is it the way I'm interviewing people? But then people said, "Oh, you know, you're interviewing stars really good. I treat people with respect and everything." But Devin Townsend one is really a great example because in the UK, only three people were given the option to interview him, and I was one of them. I was told, you know, focus a lot on his book, Phil. But I got the album. I managed to weave that into the
It's as close to
dialogue.
as the exclusive as you can get, right?
Exactly. And the guy's on tour here. You know, my reach is good and all the rest of it. And now, stunned. I even, you know, I th- yes, I was quite surprised. But this is the thing, and it'd be interesting to know what you think about this, Pete, because we're talking about, you know, this and negativity. I feel that I have responsibilities, my channel and my reach grows to try and help artists get seen and to help them to this help this stuff that I really like, this music. But I just like you, sometimes I'll be approached by a band who aren't well known and they say, Phil, can you review our album, please? And I'll admit sometimes I'm torn thinking I could, but no one will watch this. And I also get lots of people say, Phil, will you interview us for this? We're open for interviews. I get stuff all the time like you do. And I think I could, but if Steve Howe isn't bringing the numbers in, then there's a good chance that you aren't going to do it either. And I've got to think, I've got to weigh this up because it's a balance
It's
for
a
every
time
video,
factor for you. Yeah, for us. Yeah, absolutely.
the time factor, and also because I know the way the algorithm is a bully. If I have a series of videos that don't perform as they should, then when I put one out that actually I know is going to just do really well, it won't because it won't be pushed out because the algorithm will have decided, oh, well, this guy over here on this channel, he's obviously now decided to go down a route that we're no one's watching, so we're not going to push the next one. So you have to behind the scenes think, to put this one out, I'm going to have a big hitter either side to make sure that everything stays as it should. These are the kind of technical things that creators have to think about without, because I don't want to sustain anything with negativity. But even so, just being kind, nice, and trying to be supportive to all the great new bands out there isn't isn't easy either. I could be interviewing people more than I am, but I have to think I don't know who's going to watch this, and it's my time, and I've got to research it and come up with the questions, and it's edited, and it's difficult, isn't it? So I would
It
like to know
really
as
is.
well why that is. And then people say, "Oh, brilliant interview, great, fantastic! You're getting these people on your channel, Phil." But it does mean, like you, there's a huge chunk of the community that goes, "Nah, I'm going to listen to the album."
I don't want to hear him talk about it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand. And we've even on many occasions we've brought some of these rock stars onto various shows and programs that we've done, these panel shows, and I'm thinking,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
how cool is it? This person is going to join this show. It's going to help draw more viewers, and it doesn't. And we promote it as such. We got this special rock star guest star on this on In the Prague Theater, Hudson Valley Squares, and they don't, and the episodes don't do any better than normal when it's just us. I don't understand. I really don't understand.
Did
Folks love
you
the music, but they're not interested in hearing them talk about, whatever it is.
Do you think it's because one of my interviews that did really well was the Tony Martin one when the Tony Martin Years Black Sabbath box set came out. It did very well, but I don't know whether it did well because of there was a bit of kind of intrigue behind the fact that what wasn't included in the box set and the what Sharon being involved and how Ozzy thought there was a bit of kind of is something going to come out that's a bit controversial. So I don't know whether that was kind of an undertow. I mean, I didn't use any clickbaity titles or anything, but it did do exceptionally well. Whereas when I interviewed Tony Banks from Genesis, which I thought was an exclusive as well, hardly anything. And this is a quandary. He said something in that interview which I thought, well, now other YouTubers or some people might take that out of context and turn that into a title. He said something about halfway through about how he felt about playing with English orchestras. He wasn't very positive, but I could have put together a title that was really damning, and I experimented on a short using that title to see what would happen. And what happened was it suddenly took off, and all the comments were for people who didn't agree with what Mr. Banks was saying. And I thought, this isn't fair on him
No, no.
because he's not going to want to because he's not going to want to ever talk to me ever again because I've taken something out of context. It's not, and also it's not fair because it's got people flaming him now, basically running him down. So I deleted it. So I didn't because I know some people do that as well to try and boost the interview videos by just taking something out and putting it like clickbait. But you're a musician, I'm a musician. I just feel that the interviews I try and keep them as informative and not try and trap the person I'm talking to into saying something and then got you. It's not because they get that from
Well,
mainstream
that
press.
begs the question then, are people really only interested in interviews if there is something controversial that's being discussed within the interview, as
Yeah,
opposed to a great conversation? I mean, to me, from a fan perspective, again, I've done lots of interviews. There's nothing more fulfilling for me than knowing that I put together a list of great questions that is going to get the person I'm talking to tell their story. Because
yes,
I've
and
always
feel
said, I've said it
comfortable.
a million times, and a lot of people comment on how well I do at it. I'm not doing interviews for people to hear me talk. You hear me
Yeah,
talk enough on the channel. We want to hear from them. So it's my job to come up with questions that hopefully aren't the same questions that everybody else is asking them. And I try very hard not to do that and to get them talking about stuff that will be of interest to the viewership that gives you a little bit more insight into who they are and what their history and story is all about. And I think I do that pretty well.
yeah,
But
you
I'm
do.
still amazed that like that's not enough for people sometimes. Like, what do you really want to hear them say that's going to make you want to watch this 30-minute interview with them or however long it is, I don't know. That I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to bring it up here for those watching. We want to know why interviews with famous rock stars that where you love their music, you love their albums. Why, when we get them on here to talk about this stuff, people just don't watch? I don't know. And a lot of our regular viewers who do watch are going to chime in. It's like, well, Pete, Phil, we do watch those. Okay, well, we're not necessarily talking to you. We're talking about the thousands of other people that come here to watch all sorts of other stuff. And yet, and will watch us review the albums, but they don't want to hear or not interested to hear the creators behind the making of those albums come on here and talk about them. I don't get it. I'm mystified by it.
The only, just trying to think off the top of my head now. So this is just as my thoughts come into me. I mean, if I go back to when I was growing up in the 70s or the 80s, there was no YouTube. There was the only media where you could see your idols talk was was printed paper and magazines. And so if any of the people were talking about had something to say, it would be in one or two, three periodicals, newspapers, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now, maybe because now these artists will sit down and do one interview after the other, and they're basically syndicated across the world, across loads of YouTube channels and media channels. People just think, if I want to listen to Devin Townsend or Steve Howe, I can listen. I can go and watch them talk whenever I want. I don't know. Maybe there's no sense of urgency that they're going to say anything that's
Hasn't been said
different.
already.
I
Yeah, and
don't know.
that could be. I mean, I know, like I remember a couple of years ago, I interviewed Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, which is a
Wow.
big deal to me, right? I was
Yeah,
like,
massive, massive. Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
That video also didn't do great, but I know from talking to the publicist from the record label that he must have talked to like every YouTube channel in the weeks leading up to talking to me. So he was doing interviews with YouTube channels that have like 50 subscribers that, nobody's watching these channels.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm thinking, and that's not his fault.
No, no.
That is the fault of the labels and the PR groups who
Yeah,
are
exactly.
basically taking interviews with everybody. See, that didn't used to be the case, Phil, 20 years ago when I was first started up the Sea of Tranquility webzine, and when we were a print magazine. You worked with the record labels, and they had a finite list of slots to have a phone interview with whoever it might be. And they were very picky about who they gave an interview. They would ask questions like, well, what's your viewership? And
Yeah,
how
yeah,
many hits a month do you get? How many sales of the magazine do you see? How many copies of the mag? They asked all of these questions before they would say, yes, okay, we'll grant you an interview slot. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it's like, oh, you got a YouTube channel? You got a podcast? Sure, we'll sign you up. We'll have Ian Anderson talking to 300 people over the next 2 weeks. I mean, by the time Ian got to me, I could tell he probably had been asked the same questions over and over and
yeah,
over and over again. I could see the attitude all over his face in the first 3 minutes. But you know what? Within a couple of minutes, once he started hearing the questions that I was asking him, he was like, oh, okay, great. Someone's finally asking me something that I can actually talk about. And his tone changed the whole second half of the
yeah,
interview, totally changed for the better. So, yes, I think there is a lot to be said about the fact that a lot of these rock stars, they're all over the place talking to everybody. I get it. So if you're a viewer watching this right now and we're posing this question to you and you're saying, yes, Phil, yes, Pete, the reason why I may not watch an interview on your channel with a Devin Townsend is because I already watched 5 interviews that he did with various other sites and podcasts and channels. And honestly, I want to know that. We want to know that because we're trying to figure out why this happens. And if that is the case, then that's something personally that I'm going to go back to the record labels with, and I'm going to be like, here's the deal. All right. We want to help you promote this artist and their music. You want us to interview them. However, we're getting so little traction on interviews that, and here's the reason why, and we're hearing it from the viewers directly. You guys need to change the way you do things so that more people are interested in listening to us talk to this artist and then going out and investigating their music and buying their albums. Because right now, it's not working. It's like they're watching us review the album, right? So that's going to get you initial sales,
yeah.
but you want to keep sustaining this and building the momentum of this release. So if we're interviewing a Devin Townsend a month after the album has come out already and only 500 people are watching it, that's probably not getting you any additional sales. because but in the Devin Townsend situation, I don't understand because if only three channels were interviewing him in the UK, there should be lots of eyes on all those interviews, you know? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's just, again, we want to hear from the viewers what their take on this is. And do
Yeah.
you enjoy us talking to these rock stars, or do you not really care? Right? Is it just you're just more interested in getting the album and hearing about the album? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I get, you know, I get requests to interview people all the time, and I'm more and more. I'm just kind of like, do I, like Phil said, do I even want to bother with this? Is anybody going to watch it? Because it's time out of my day. It's research I got to do. In some cases, I got to go listen to an album. I got to carve out time on my schedule. And then when I interview someone and I'm like, all right, so I just spent the time and did everything I just said, and then 1,000 people watched it and hardly anybody commented on the video. So it's almost like did people click in and maybe sit for 2, 3 minutes and then click out, right? So it's like we spent the time and the effort to do this. And the artist, that's another thing. The artist has an expectation, right?
Yeah.
Well, Sea of Tranquility has 100,000 subscribers, does, six, seven, 800,000, a million views a month, right? This is going to help boost my sales of my album. People are going to, it's like,
Yeah.
and then they come on to the interview and they're like, gee, 100,000 subscribers. Why have only 1,000 watched this? I don't understand. Pete, what happens? And I'm like, I don't know. I wish I had the answer for you.
Yeah, that's very true actually, especially as you say with those kind of numbers and that kind of differential between who watched with that kind of subscriber base. It is how some people will perceive it. But so I would be just as interested to know what people think. But I guess there are some people out there where interviewing. I mean, you must have had people approach you, other people who have got YouTube channels saying, Phil, I want to get into interviewing. What do I need to do? I've noticed you've got some good names. Do I just approach them on Facebook? I mean, maybe that's the problem with some artists. Don't be approached on Facebook and don't say yes to everything that comes along.
Yeah,
But I think not everyone. Some people just ask the same questions. I think me and you do put the artist at ease. I've seen it myself when someone is watching me and they're looking suspicious about thinking, "What? Who's this person I'm talking to?" And then they settle down and they think, "Oh, I haven't been asked that before. That's interesting." And then you're telling a story based on your own experience of when you've first heard this music, which is obviously not like a journalist who's been told to go and talk to someone they know nothing about them and they just what's out? Give me the press release, and they just try and pick a few questions in the press release. What we do is researched. It's from the heart. We really care. We really want to immerse ourselves in the artist and their creative process for the album that we reviewed. But as you say, then people think, now I'll wait till another review video comes along. I think, oh, I might watch that later. It is frustrating, I must admit. Yeah.
it is. It is. And just keep in mind, everybody, we're having this conversation, we're posing these questions because we honestly want to know. It's like we're not we're not trying to come across as like, complaining about the fact that, well,
No.
we are complaining a little bit because we fully believe that there is value in these discussions with these musicians. And as fans, because we are fans, just like everybody watching, we get very excited when we're going to be talking to some of our heroes and having a meaningful conversation with them, getting them to open up and tell stories. And so you have to understand the disappointment and the frustration when that doesn't parlay into our faithful viewers feeling the same way and getting the joy and reward out of watching and listening to these conversations. And we honestly want to know why. Do so many people just avoid these types of videos when
I
it's
mean,
at
what I mean, on a positive, both of us are creating an archive, an historical archive of conversations with artists that at some point in the future may not be around, and
correct?
talking about these classic albums, and that's for forever going to be on our channels, I hope. And that is something that I think we should both be proud of that exists. I mean, when I first started interviewing, I didn't know when to stop. So when I remember I spoke to Andy Powell from Wishbone Ash, and it was nearly 2 hours. I'm surprised he lasted that long, but I mean, he did enjoy it, and he gave me tickets for a gig. But I mean, I don't do that anymore. But the fact is that I think I was so amazed that he was in front of me. But I went through his whole year by year catalogue of every album being released, I think. but it exists. It's there for someone to watch, and it's like there's probably information in there that has never appeared in other magazines or outlets. So I'm not going to stop doing them. I think for the future, and this interested what you think about this, Pete, is thinking about 2025, is all the new music, all the new bands, all the new artists that wants exposure. Because if we struggle sometimes to give exposure to someone from John Anderson from Yes, ex Yes vocalist, then how does a young band from New York, send the CD in and think, I wonder if Sea of Tranquility or Phil Aston will do a separate video on this record or interview us. It's tricky, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And I feel bad sometimes because I get to ask that question all the time. It's like, we'd like you to hear our new album and maybe have us on for an interview. And I'm like, all right, well, you can send me the album and we'll put it in our, queue to possibly review.
Yeah.
I just silently do not answer the other part of it because I'm kind of like, I don't even know who you are. My viewership doesn't know who you are. They're not going to be all that interested in an interview with you talking about this band and this music that they don't know at all. And I feel bad. And I understand why they ask because they're like, oh, any exposure is good exposure. And I get it. Um, if I hadn't, if I was retired and I was doing nothing else, and maybe I would do more interviews with more of the underground and lesser known artists. And hey, whatever exposure you're going to get, this is what you're going to get. I'll do the interview. You got 30 minutes. Let's talk about the album. I'm not guarantee you thousands and thousands of views, but you know what? If you get five new fans out of it, that's probably a good thing, right? I don't have the luxury of doing that right now. I just don't. So now it's like if I'm going to do interviews, it's going to be with the Michael Kiskis of the world and the John Andersons of the world and the Steve Lukethers and the Neil Morses and all those people, right? Because it's like that's what I can do. And even those don't generate a lot of traction either, it is what it is. I wish it was different. I really wish it was different. But that's kind of the situation that we're in. So to kind of close things up here, we've obviously talked about a lot here in the last hour, and we've posed a lot of questions to the viewership. And I really want everybody to think about what we've talked about. Again, we're trying to improve our channels. We're trying to make programming that's more of what you want to see. Uh, but there are certain issues and questions that we have that we want to know a little bit more about from you watching. So let us know down in the comments below about why you prefer this type of content over that, right? Why you would prefer us talking about a band or artist new album and music and not hear from the artist directly about that album and their music. So because we're struggling to figure out why the views are as they are on this type of content, and because we really love doing it and love talking to these people, but in the long run, if really that's not what people want to watch, and they really aren't all that much interested in hearing from them, it's something we have to consider, right? Because like
Yeah.
when the record label comes to us and say, "Hey, can you talk to Devin Townsend?" I'm going to be like, you know what? My viewership has told me that they're really not interested in hearing from him directly you know.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we need to know that. Right?
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So, Phil, what's going on over at Now Spinning Magazine in the
Well,
days and
yeah,
weeks
I've got
ahead?
lots of shows coming up. I've got a new podcast called Meet the Collector, and Scott Lade was my second guest on that, and that went really well as he mentioned his top five prog albums. And I think we got between us probably half the world listening to Tales of Topographic Oceans for either the first time or for the first time in a long time. So I've got quite a few of those coming up, and yeah, there's some new interviews in the new year, but I've also got lots of review shows just like yourself and things. And but it'd be great also if we do more collaboration in 2025 as well.
Yep, I'm all for that. Always happy to spend some time with you, Phil, and
Yeah.
we'll do that. In fact, you may want to invite me onto one of those collector shows there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That would be perfect, wouldn't it? Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, great idea, Pete. Thank you.
So we'll do that. We'll do that.
All right.
And yeah, so thanks for watching, everybody. Again, your comments will be greatly appreciated. I'm hoping we get lots of them on this video and help us make
Yes.
better content going forward and help us understanding what it is that you really want, what you really like. That's what this is all about. So,
Yes.
but yeah, but the ultimate message is here is that we feel very strongly in positive programming. And you might get from me, especially every now and then, one of those funny little negative type things. But if you've noticed, you've gotten very few of those. I pop them up every now and then, but it's just not. Just know that deep down inside, that's not really what I'm all about. I do it more for like comedy than I do for anything else, for a laugh. But yeah. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, go over to Now Spinning Magazine, give Phil some love, get a subscribe over there, and check out some of his wealth of great content. Phil does a fantastic job over there. And I'm glad to see that Phil has been getting lots of new viewers and because he puts out quality programming. And I
Thank
always
you.
love the positivity of what Phil brings to the table. So check him out as well. And we'll see you next time. If you missed it, Phil appeared along with a handful of other people on the most recent Review Crew episode. It was loads of fun. And like Phil said, he'll be on the next one as well. So we look forward to his appearance on there and back here on SOT in 2025. So for Phil Aston, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.